All right, we'll go ahead then. And City Clerk, there she is. Good to see you. All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order tonight. We have a long agenda with several public hearings. So we'll get started. As we get started, I'm going to ask you to join me for a moment of silence and then Pledge of Allegiance before the roll call. Thank you. Now we'll do Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now I'll turn to our clerk for our roll call.
Commissioner Isasi.
Present.
Commissioner Repart.
Here.
Commissioner Lanier.
Present.
Commissioner Jones.
Here.
Commissioner O'Connor.
Here.
Commissioner Moody.
Present.
Mayor Bliss.
Thank you. So I'll walk through a few things and then I'll introduce us to Griselda Estrada to provide some instructions in Spanish in case we have any Spanish speakers join us tonight. So we have several opportunities for public comment. The first public comment period that I'll open up momentarily is for items that we are voting on tonight. So we have a couple rules related to public comment. We ask that you share your name, the city that you live in, and then you'll be given up to 3 minutes to speak. On the first public comment period, we ask that you be explicit about what action item or what agenda item you're speaking on. And then we have 3 scheduled public hearings tonight. So we have a public hearing related to the zoning ordinance text amendments for both medical and recreational marijuana facilities. That is public hearing number 1. We have a public hearing on past performance and future needs of the housing and community development programs. That's public hearing number 2. And then we have a city commission to hear appeals on a special assessment nuisance rule. That's number 4. And then at the end of the meeting is when we have open comments. So for comments, we ask that you call into 456-3000 or 311, hit the number 1. And then for the first public comment, it's you would hit number 1. For the public hearings, you would hit 2, 3, and 4. And then for the last opportunity for public comment, it's number 5. So I'll turn to and introduce Ms. Griselda Estrada, and then we'll get started on the public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. My name is Griselda Estrada, and I'll be your Spanish interpreter for this commission session. If you would like to call in, please dial 616-456-3000 or 311 and follow the telephone prompts. Muchas gracias, alcaldesa. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Griselda Estrada. Yo seré su intérprete en español para esta sesión de la comisión. Si desea llamar, marque al 616-456-3000 o al 611 en la ciudad de Grand Rapids y sigan las instrucciones del sistema telefónico para poder proveer audiencia pública con la comisión. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Estrada. All right, next up, we'll take us to our first opportunity for public comment. And again, this is public comment on things that we are actually voting on tonight. So these are items that we talked about earlier in the day where we had standing committee meetings, and they are on our agenda for final approval tonight. So again, it's calling in 456-3000 or 311. Hit the number 1 and then number 1, and we ask you to share your name, the city that you live in, and the specific item that you're speaking about. Daniel, do we have anyone in the queue?
Here comes the first caller.
Thank you.
Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live and which agenda item you're addressing. Your time starts now.
Good evening. Grand Rapids Watchdog Miller reporting shocking turn of events. Getting to here, 3 quick items. I was in by 5, but received no agenda. So if a 25-story Wheeler building is to go up in the Hartside neighborhood down I oppose any subsidies for that tonight. Next, social zones are blocking our buses getting into City Hall, and if that's on the agenda. And third thing, the Grand Rapids Press will be published in Cleveland from now on. That's impossible, and I want to notify all the subsidies should be returned. They'd be a $12 million what they out of 155 Monroe, and they can see further subsidies at 169 Monroe. Please look into that. Thank you ever so much for Watchdog Miller reporting.
Thank
Back
you.
there.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr. Miller. All right, Daniel, and
Yes. Tyler, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name, the city in which you live, and the agenda item you're addressing. Your time starts now.
Hi, good evening, Commissioner. This is Aaron Smith with Agromet, Grand Haven, Michigan, 491 Masons Way. I wanted to make a comment on agenda item 12-1 regarding the regulations for medical and recreational marijuana facilities.
Sir, that's
I know
actually
you-
a public hearing tonight. So you'll call back and when the prompt prompts you to select that item, that's when you can speak on that item.
Okay, I'll wait my turn then. Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name, the city in which you live, and the agenda item you're addressing. You have 3 minutes. Your
Yeah.
time starts now.
Thank you. My name is Adam Diaz. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I'm in Burton Heights, and I would like to address the gun buyback. I think is what is up for vote tonight. So I'm going to read something that I'd written earlier to try to stay on point. So, living in Burton Heights and keeping my ear to the community, I'm at least vaguely familiar with that topic. The significant increase in shootings and gun-related activity in the last 6 months. This concerns my family directly. I personally went from maybe one notification every couple of weeks to base of breaking and entering to now multiple every night. The most concerning is that the nature of these events, at least to me, appears to suggest that the perpetrators are developing, I guess, what you would call confidence. Several weeks ago, after sitting in the backyard with my wife for about an hour, we went inside, and not even 10 minutes later, my wife watched as 2 Grand Rapids police officers ran up our driveway with guns drawn in pursuit. Our officers handled themselves with absolute professionalism, and I believe ultimately caught 2 of the 3 guys they were chasing. Every time my family hears police race down Burton Avenue, I'm humbly reminded of the risks that GRPD puts themselves willing through daily. These men and women of the GRPD have my family's complete love and support. Saying this, I'm here to voice my concern, hopefully not frustration, in this particular response to the increasing crime. When I read that a gun buyback was in the works and that the request for money was to be discussed, I immediately kind of took issue. Ladies and gentlemen, we know what would put an end to all this, and it's actually more police. Police enforcing law and order. When I read this, I thought, $20,000, okay, take it. But seriously, a buyback, this can't be the only response. GRPD knows as well as I do that this does not address the issue really at all. Sure, it looks good that we were able to take some nice number of guns off the streets, but does it really affect the people committing these crimes? Or are we talking about non-criminals just turning in items they view as dangerous or aren't adequately trained on, which is great. It's awesome that the city's providing an opportunity for that. But I thought, how much police overtime could maybe $20,000 purchase? How much police overtime could $200,000 provide? What kind of police blitz could we do that would directly confront this crime rate and this increasing crime? Ladies and gentlemen, the Grand Rapids Grand Rapids loves its police. The Grand Rapids community loves its police. Despite whatever narrative we're seeing on a daily basis, we support our police. So I ask that we don't leave it at this.
Thank you, caller.
Ask for financial
That's
support.
3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name, the city in which you live, and the agenda item you're going to address. Your time starts now.
My name is Joe Spalding. I live in Oakland, California, but I lived in Baxter neighborhood for the better part of a decade. I just wanted to encourage the commission on the gun buyback program to push forward with that and urge you all to keep in mind the whether or not there's more violence in a given area is going to be how much investment is given in that community. And when I say investment in that area, I don't mean increased police presence. And the gun buyback program is just one tiny drop in the bucket where we can impact a specific place where there's a huge potential for harm. And it's super important that we take advantage of any chance that we get to lower the amount of violence. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Mayor, there are no more callers in the queue.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, we'll move on then to petitions and communications.
First one is a communication received from Viola Stevens expressing concern for the funding of Realism as Loyalty.
That is received and filed.
Communication received from Tammy Vandenberg, West Michigan Cannabis Guild, expressing support for expanding opportunity in the Grand Rapids cannabis industry.
That is received and filed.
Communications received from Landon Barley, Proxima Collective, expressing support for medical cannabis facilities waivers to be transferred to corresponding recreation applications.
And that is also received and filed. All right, next that will take us to reports of city officers, and we have 2 items before us tonight.
Yes, first one is a comptroller's report for the period of August 13, 2020, September 2, 2020, in the amount of $151,536,313.20.
That is received and filed.
And treasurer's report for the period of August 11, 2020 through August 28, 2020.
And that is also received and filed. All right, next.
Mayor,
Yeah?
I just realized we didn't have approval of minutes from the last meeting.
Oh, did I?
No, you didn't miss it. I don't think we got it on the agenda.
It's not on our agenda, so thank you for bringing that to my attention.
I knew we missed a roll call there somewhere.
I'll do that now, and then we'll move to the consent agenda, where I'll ask to have one item removed from consent. So we need to approve our minutes from our last meeting. City Clerk, can you make sure that that is in our evening packet and made public? Okay.
Yeah, I will.
So commissioners, can I get a motion to approve the agenda from our last meeting? Or I'm sorry, the minutes from our last meeting?
So moved.
All right, moved and supported. Any questions or comments? All right, I'll turn to our city clerk for the.
Commissioner Repart,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
Commissioner Moody,
Yes.
Commissioner Isasi,
Yes.
Mayor Bliss.
Yes, it carries. Thank you for catching that, City Clerk. All right, next that will take us to our consent agenda. And before we move forward with that, I'm going to ask for a motion to remove CD7 from the consent agenda for reconsideration.
I'll make the motion. Support.
All right, moved and supported. Can I get a vote to remove that item?
Commissioner Lanier, Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
Commissioner Moody,
Yes.
Commissioner Isasi,
Yes.
Commissioner Repart,
Yes.
Mayor Bliss.
Yes, thank you. So next I'll ask for a motion for the consent agenda.
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Any questions or comments about our consent agenda and the items that we discussed and voted on this morning? All right, seeing none, then I'll go ahead and ask the city clerk to call the vote.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
Commissioner Moody, Commissioner
Yes.
Isasi,
Yes.
Commissioner Repart,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Aye.
Mayor Bliss.
You're on mute, Mayor.
No, I just unmuted. Okay.
Thank you, City Clerk. So next, that'll take us to items removed from consent, and we have 2 items before us tonight that have been removed from consent, one being the one we just discussed. But we'll start with the first one, and this is a resolution providing for the publication of an ordinance and to schedule a public hearing for October 13th to amend Chapter 71 of Title 6 of the Code of the City of Grand Rapids, currently titled Clean Indoor Air Act. Can I get a motion?
Support.
All right, moved and supported, and I will turn to Commissioner Ruppert to tell us about this item.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. This is the result of many years of work, which essentially is to ban smoking in public parks and also, as we discussed this morning, the golf course. And so after lots of public engagement and conversation, it's coming to us now to set a public hearing for October the 13th to allow the community to weigh in on this change.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I see our Parks Director is here to join us if we have any questions. But I'll first open it to Commissioner to see if there's any questions or comments related to this item. We had a lengthy conversation about it this morning. Commissioner Moody?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Earlier this morning, I voted no in reference to this particular resolution because I got some concerns. So I'm glad it's going to go before the public. I just want to make sure that tonight's vote is primarily for the ordinance to go to the public and that we're not voting this on tonight as a final piece of legislation for the community. That's on the clarity that I needed.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. So yeah, just to be clear, this is to set the public hearing for October 13th. So we won't vote on it as a body until we go through the public hearing and the community has an opportunity to weigh in, and then it will be brought back before us for a full amendment or to vote it down. So any other questions or comments? All right, I'll ask the city clerk to call the vote.
Commissioner O'Connor,
No.
Commissioner Moody,
No.
Commissioner Isasi,
Yes.
Commissioner Ruppert,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Bliss.
Yes, it carries. Thank you. All right, next will be the item that we pulled off of CD. So this is a resolution approving a release of easement and accepting a public utilities easement for 3303 52nd Street Southeast. Can I get a motion to bring that up? All right, moved and supported. And I think what I'll do, since some of us were not in CD this morning, is ask our city engineer to just explain this item. The request came from staff to remove it from consent because of some additional things that we found out this afternoon. So I'll turn to our city engineer, Mr. Berkman, and then we can ask him any questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Commissioners. Appreciate you reconsidering this original request that was brought this morning. The item involved a 40-foot wide public utilities easement in a single-family home subdivision in Kentwood. And the resolution was to replace that easement with a new 30-foot easement, so 10-foot narrower than what's existing. Which would have been sufficient for the existing sewer there. However, in talking about this item further after this morning's CD meeting with staff from Environmental Services, Water, as well as the engineering office, we determined that they would like to see that existing easement remain as is because there's a potential for a future water main connection in that area. So we've since discussed this with the developer as well as their consultant who submitted this original request to us. They are agreeable to leaving the easement as is. So we would request that this item essentially be voted down to allow the current condition to remain with the 40-foot easement still in place. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that description. Commissioners, any questions or comments? All right, then I'll turn to our city clerk to call the question.
Commissioner Moody,
Yes.
Keep going. Yeah.
okay. Commissioner Isasi,
No.
Commissioner Ruppert,
No.
Commissioner Lanier,
So I'm getting confused. So we're voting it down. You didn't change the ordinance so that we can agree to remove it. You just want us to vote it down so that it isn't approved.
Correct.
So mine is a no.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Jones,
No.
Commissioner O'Connor,
No.
Mayor Bliss.
No, it fails. All right, thank you. So next that will take us to ordinances to be adopted, and we have one ordinance before us tonight.
The first one is, or the only one, is the ordinance amending section 1 of the budget ordinance 2020-15 for fiscal year 2021, amendment number 5.
All right.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Chair of our fiscal committee, Commissioner O'Connor, you want to tell us about this?
Yes, Mayor. Thank you. We have 4 items on here tonight. The first one is to appropriate Parks and Millage funds. As the department transitioned to the pool season, that we didn't have the pools open, so there's some funds there. We received a grant for $800,000 to the Office of Equity Engagement for the River for All Racial and Economic Equality Grant, which is doing some great work to ensure that we have equitable access to the river, as well as opportunities for our micro local business contractors to participate in the work that's going to be done. And 3 is a budget amendment for the public library, which is a slight increase in the amount of funding to be expended. They're actually consolidating. They're going to have 2 positions added, but 1 position is going away. And we did receive confirmation from our partners at the public library that it is hopeful that they're going to open here in the next month or so back for the public. They have been providing services while COVID has been occurring, but going to ramp back up to offer more services and indoor service soon. And then the last one is just for some street lighting improvements to the Monroe Center.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate the question asked this morning about our public library. I know I've been asked about that for several weeks now, and I heard Mr. McNaughton's response, and I'll hopefully send them some additional information in our county that our positivity rate for COVID has been 3% or below for several weeks now. So hopefully they'll move forward with reopening soon. All right, any other questions or comments about the budget ordinance? All right, seeing none, I'll ask our city clerk to call the vote.
Commissioner Isasi,
Yes.
Commissioner Repart,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
My answer is yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
Commissioner Moody,
Yes.
Mayor Bliss.
Yes, it carries. And commissioners, can I get a motion to give this immediate effect?
So moved.
Support.
All right, moved and supported. Any additional questions or comments? All right, call the vote.
Commissioner Repart,
Yes.
Commissioner Lanier,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner O'Connor,
Yes.
Commissioner Moody,
Yes.
Commissioner Isasi,
Yes.
Mayor Bliss.
Yes, it carries. All right, commissioners, that will take us to our scheduled public hearings. And as I indicated, we have 3 of them tonight. So just a reminder for folks who are listening in, we have 3 scheduled public hearings tonight. The first one is related to the zoning ordinance text amendments related to land use, related to the medical and recreational marijuana facilities. Second one is for the housing and community development programs. And the third one is a special assessment for nuisance rules. So if you want to call about the zoning ordinance, which will be the first one up, we ask that you call 456-3000 or 311, hit the number 1, and then hit number 2. If you're calling about the past performance related to the housing and community development programs, you can hit 1 and then 3. And then if you were calling about the special assessment nuisance rule, you hit 1 and then 4. So we'll go ahead and move forward with the first one. As I indicated, this is a public hearing on zoning ordinance text amendments relative to land use regulations for medical and recreational marijuana facilities and other amendments meant to clarify and correct previously adopted language. So we have Ms. Turkelson with us tonight to provide a little bit of a summary about what is before us, and then we'll open it up for public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, commissioners. At the last meeting, I did provide you with a fairly comprehensive overview with the details of the proposed text amendments, but for the interest of the public hearing, to provide you with a summary, but certainly available for clarifications if any is needed. So today is a public hearing on the next round of zoning and text amendments to provide additional land use regulations for marijuana facilities and to set the date of ordinance consideration for September 29th. The details of the ordinance include the following. Relative to sensitive uses, the proposed ordinance does not include any changes, so no changes have been proposed for sensitive uses. Relative to separation distance requirements between sensitive uses and marijuana facilities, in general, no changes are proposed to the current ordinance. The exception to that statement is for micro businesses, which I'll go into more detail in a moment. Relative to waivers, the proposed ordinance would eliminate the ability for a facility to obtain a sensitive use waiver and eliminate the waiver process in its entirety. And the exception to that statement will be discussed further and generally relates to provisioning centers that have already obtained land use rights and required a waiver, and I'll cover that in a moment. I know that youth centers has been a point of discussion within the community and recently by the City Commission, so I did want to note that youth centers are not included in the proposed text amendments. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on August 13th and thoroughly discussed this with input from the community. In general, I think they had 5 key concerns, which I will admit that I do support their recommendations here. So they do not support the inclusion of youth centers as a sensitive use. Firstly, it is not clear on how many youth centers do exist within the city. And so we're unable to ascertain what impact the sensitive use would have on the number of eligible parcels. Any use that could be impacted by the geographic proximity of a proposed marijuana land use would be considered as part of the Planning Commission's special land use standard. So there is a mechanism for the Planning Commission to consider other uses, i.e. in this case, youth centers, as to what impact that marijuana use could have on the sensitive use through the existing process that they have set forward using the standards they are required to follow. If an existing approved marijuana facility is located within the separation distance of from the new sensitive use, this would result in the creation of non-conforming marijuana uses and limit the ability for an existing marijuana business to expand. And although not noted by the Planning Commission, non-conforming status does impact the ability for businesses to obtain financing for certain activities, including construction loans and loan refinancing. If an existing approved marijuana facility is located within the separation distance from a new sensitive land use, this would jeopardize the business's ability to add a recreational license, which through discussions with the marijuana industry would jeopardize the sustainability of the business itself. So despite the addition of the proposed youth center, even if we were to add a definition for a proposed youth center, there's an inability for us to definitively identify a youth center. So K through 12 schools, for example, or childcare facilities are currently sensitive uses or defined sensitive uses within the ordinance. Those facilities require state licensure. Residential zone districts are established by the city's zoning map. They are required to be buffered from a marijuana facility. We have the ability to understand where conclusively determine where the residential zone districts are. Parks and playgrounds are also identified as a sensitive use. We have the ability to determine whether it is officially a park through our Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Religious institutions are slightly more challenging, but they are identifiable through their tax-exempt status, required land use approvals, and building permit occupancies. Conversely, youth centers do not require a state license to operate, and historically, the city has not issued any land use or building permits with the associated youth center designation. So therefore, it would be very difficult for us to retroactively assign a youth center land use designation to an existing use processed under a different regulation and consideration. And so therefore, in sum, because youth centers were not recommended by your Planning Commission, they are not in the proposed draft before you. Moving on to microbusinesses. Microbusinesses are recommended for inclusion, so authorizing land use regulations to allow microbusinesses to exist. Recall that microbusinesses are vertically integrated that allow for the growing, processing, and the sale of its own cannabis. The proposed ordinance does have a fairly complex regulation in terms of its detailed depending on the district and its location from residential zone districts, from other marijuana facilities. And so included in your packet is a memo that provides you with a table that shows you the estimated number of eligible parcels for microbusiness. And then also the number, if we were to apply those regulations, what's the maximum or scenario mapping? How many actual microbusinesses could we allow within the city? So this industrial zone district, for example, would be the most permissive in that we would not require separation distance between facilities. So the number of eligible parcels would be 172, assuming they were all, of course, available and for sale. But the maximum number of microbusinesses would be 172 locations. Where when we get into our TBA zone district, for example, where we would have it would be a special land use if it were less than 500 feet from a residential zone district. And when we do the scenario mapping, we result in a total possible number of microbusinesses within that boundary of 8 parcels. And I'd refer you to the staff report for a more thorough breakdown. The last significant component of the proposed text amendments relate to existing facilities. And we've talked about this previously. Through the adoption of your July 7th zoning amendment that we've called the Fast Track Ordinance, there were 7 approved provisioning centers that effectively don't have a path forward to add a recreational retail use type. And because those 7 facilities did require sensitive use waivers. And as we know, sensitive use waivers don't transfer, and they're not available to recreational retailers based on that July 7th ordinance. So the recommendation before you is to provide a path for those provisioning centers that have established land use rights as of September 29th, which would be the date of ordinance consideration, potential date, to request consideration by the Planning Commission to allow the sensitive use waiver to also apply to a recreational marijuana license type as part of the special land use. So it's not a guarantee, but it does provide those facilities with a path forward. So with that, I will conclude my presentation and welcome any questions if appropriate.
Thank you, Ms. Turkelson. Commissioners, any questions or comments? I know we have talked about this issue at length, but before I open it up for public comment, did you have any questions for Ms. Turkelson? All right, thank you. I'll turn to Daniel then to let us know if we have anyone in the queue who wishes to be heard.
We do. Here comes the first caller, Mayor. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
My name is Bruce Bowman, and I am a property owner in Oakdale, and I would like to see youth centers included in the special use.
Go ahead.
And I would also like to see us eliminate waivers. My biggest concern for youth centers is that we have a lot of youth that walk through the community, and I just think that if we have these medical facilities that have the opportunity to have recreational use, I think it's just going to increase the decrease the safety of our youth walking to and from schools and home. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
Yes, my name is Patrick Johnson. I live in Holland, Michigan. Born and raised in 49507, right on the corner of Hall and Madison, where my mom still lives. Now work at the Grand Rapids Center for Community Transformation on Madison and Cottage Grove as the Director of Operations and Youth Services. We support the proposed amendment change to have youth services added as sensitive land uses, really for several reasons. Most importantly, in just thinking about and considering the best interest of the youth that we serve, given the fact that marijuana is now being classified as a habit-forming drug, juxtaposed to the fact that many of our young people are already coming from traumatic circumstances, including histories with drug abuse. We feel that adding youth services to the list of sensitive land uses is in the best interest of in our mission to provide young people with opportunities for transformation. Speaking from personal experience, when I grew up in 49507, there really wasn't a robust youth center such as ours. And now that we have one, we desperately seek to mitigate as many of the distractions as we can for the young people that we serve. Easy access to marijuana in such close proximity to our center would prove to be a distraction that would be detrimental to the progress we have made, as well as those projected for the next 10, 20 years and beyond.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device? Thank you. You have 3 minutes with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
Good evening. My name is Clayvon Holman. I live in Grand Rapids on the northwest side. And I'm calling tonight to ask you, would you please add use centers to the list of sensitive land uses? My dad has been in prison now for a little less than half my life, and growing up without him has been one of the most angriest things that has impacted me more than words can ever say. However, when I found my youth center in New City Kids, I found a safe place to express my anger and deal with it. I also found a place where I could be a leader, and that's why I'm calling you tonight. As a leader who will hopefully one day sit in your seats one day. I want to ask you to make sure that kids like me have a place to go to in the city where dispensaries and bars are just considered normal outside of the places where kids hang out. But I do want to make this clear. I don't think people who smoke weed can't live productive lives or contribute to the city, but I do know this. Our brains don't mature until we are at least almost 25, and THC has an impact on the brains of kids and teens. And we really need to make sure they understand the impact that smoking weed can have on them. And we need to help them see that there are other alternatives to dealing with their anger other than getting high and fighting people. And one way we do this is by giving kids juice centers where they can go to learn this stuff. And I think it only makes sense that you put them on the list of sensitive land uses so that you can tell everyone that we as a city think that kids deserve a place where they can just go to be kids. Finally, please eliminate waivers so that the Planning Commission knows specifically how to decide where to grant dispensary places to be used. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Thank you. My name is John Blahnik, and I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I work serving high school students on the northwest side in a ministry. And I guess my concerns with having marijuana shops near youth centers are that our students have shared with me on many, many occasions that they have had trauma in their lives due to marijuana and from their parents, from their families. It's caused a lot of problems. They have shared stories and testimony of how they have started using even as early as 11 or 12 years old in order to cope and in order to deal with the struggles that they face in their families instead of seeking out healthier options for them. They've also shared that as they started marijuana, school attendance has dropped. They had less of a care for life. And for the things that they're supposed to be doing, obeying their parents, they're sneaking out at night. Yeah, students don't have a lot of safe places in their lives. Oftentimes they share that they don't feel comfortable even sharing with their parents what's going on. And these youth centers will give them a place where they can go and be cared for and loved by caring adults who can counsel them through a lot of the struggles that they face in life. And having to go past marijuana dispensaries in order to get to those places is going to can make them feel unsafe because that's a trigger for a lot of the violence and experience that they've had that have caused a lot of the trauma and struggle in their lives. And we want them to be able to attend these places in safety and feel comfortable seeking out healthier options for to deal with the struggles that they're facing in their daily lives. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device? You're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ryan Walkus, longtime resident of the West Side, Executive Director of Bridge Street Ministries. First of all, I just want to thank you for your tireless efforts in, man, a really difficult time for everybody, including the city. And I just want to commend you for continued efforts to create equitable opportunities in the city. It is commendable, and you're setting an example. I appreciate that. I want to speak in support of adding youth centers to the proposed marijuana ordinance, as well as support the elimination of waivers. You know, as we heard this evening and as detailed in the latest Planning Commission meeting minutes, the denial of their Planning Commission on this request is based largely on uncertainty of the implications of what this could mean. Our support of this proposal is rooted deeply in certainty. Certainty in a growing body of evidence that marijuana is detrimental to the development of young people. And also certainty that there are very few safe places in the city, especially for urban youth who face unbelievable pressures every single day. We're just asking that you as a commission would support the youth of this city and support our efforts in this community to create safe places that are free from the pressures. There's an argument that there's already the legal protections of selling marijuana to minors. However, our concern is not the legal protections, it's the proximity and the increased usage that's going to come from that proximity. I also want to just encourage you to think about what will make this city great. The arguments that we've heard against the addition are largely rooted in economic uncertainties, but I want to encourage you to think about a more nuanced metric of what it means to be a great city. And if we're going to rise to the greatness that this city has the potential for, I think we want to be a city that makes a statement, even in our city ordinance, that we're going to protect the development of our youth. So please consider adding youth centers to sensitive land use and eliminate the waivers so that the process is clear, saving everybody time and money so that we can focus on the things that are really important in the city. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Yes, good evening. My name is Pastor Eula C. Gaddis of the Prince Baptist Church here in Grand Rapids, Michigan. First of all, I want to thank the commission and the members for their continued support and use and service in this community. First of all, I want to humbly request that the commission not allow dispensaries to apply for sensitive land use. I believe that the commission is correct in their stance on that particular issue. Secondly, I would request that the youth centers are added to the list of sensitive land use. And for the following reasons, I believe that the city of Grand Rapids and the commission should engage in systematic research really to determine conclusively whether or not there are negative impacts of youth and marijuana use. Secondly, I think that there should be more research on how the exposure and the proximity of marijuana dispensaries to those youth centers could result in an increased use of marijuana. And then third, the city of Grand Rapids, I think, should also consider requiring dispensaries to support efforts and programs that curb the use of marijuana by youth, as well as others who abuse drugs. And then finally, I think that the city of Grand Rapids and the commission should understand the negative impacts that dispensaries have when they're concentrated in urban neighborhoods. The youth of Grand Rapids already have enough challenges that they face in their lives. So again, I want to thank you for this evening and thank you for allowing me to be heard on this subject matter.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hello, thank you. My name is Hannah Tisa Herbert and I live in Grand Rapids. And I work at a nonprofit here in the city as well. And on this issue, we see that it is a public health concern because we know that marijuana is not being classified as habit forming and also connected to alcohol and drug abuse. And as a youth worker in the city, I spend a lot of time, effort, and resources on helping students, helping children and youth form healthy habits. And so it's very important for me, for the people I work with, that that these centers that will be selling marijuana are not in the proximity of our churches and nonprofits and youth centers that I work at and work with as we help develop youth. We know that many hours have been put identifying sensitive land uses, and if these are important places that we want to protect, it's very important that the waiver process is eliminated so that we can continue to protect these spaces where youth come to feel safe, where they come to get guidance, and many times come to change the narrative in their own lives, to change and receive support against the influences that try to put them down a negative pathway. And so, as a youth worker, it just speaks volumes when the city supports the work that we're doing to raise up youth in a positive and productive way. So thank you so much for listening to our comments today. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Good evening. Watchdog Jack at Grand Rapids, Watchdog Miller reporting. First, a housekeeping matter on the Budo procedures. We put on wallpaper music the whole time, so I couldn't hear what the previous 7 witnesses on this matter stated. So please put through directly what the other citizens are saying so we can stay current in the meeting. Submitted a formal document on this matter entitled ex-con coddling, cannabis coddling, rubber stamp. And specifically, I was addressing the marijuana hire as a specific marijuana regulator. There's some deal breakers in this. Really, the upshot of all the marijuana saturation just incentivizes neighborhood precincts to join either East Grand Rapids, Wyoming, or Walker, etc. His job description, his or her job is there. Anyway, it mandates, if you heard right there, the job description mandates a rubber stamp regulator for the cannabis industry, quote unquote, industry. The job description makes no mention of federal EPA concerns for a growth facilitator, which is in our neck of the woods, just across the Ford Freeway. The advertised job description makes no mention federal DEA or dozens of federal marijuana laws, regulations, or international treaties, and city law departments are totally uncooperative on stating which ones they refuse to honor. Now, I see you may put in a youth center for the 1,000-foot barrier, but they only run maybe 25 hours a week. But you're ignoring a place like mine, a 144-hour-a-week senior home where I live. Then we would merit 6 times that distance of 1,000 feet under the various Civil Rights Acts, 64, the Older Americans Act, July 1465, as well as Elliott Lawson. A couple of other matters. Basically, the city Hall is living off federal largesse. By declaring war on the federal war on drugs, the city of Grand Rapids, the state of Michigan, forfeited any rights or claims to further federal funds. A 6,000 plant marijuana agri-grow facility is scheduled for 2055 Forest Freeway, and close to us at Plymouth Arms, we also have a 120 flat Cambridge Square low-income people.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. That's 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device?
Yes.
Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
All right. Hello, my name is Chris Miguel, and I'm a student at Union High School. I'm in favor of adding youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses in the new marijuana ordinance. As a young person that has a history with marijuana and has seen the negative effects that it has on youth like me, I think it is important to protect spaces in our city that are designated to support us. There are a few places in our neighborhoods that are free from the pressures and negative influences that youth face every day. By adding youth centers to the list, we'll be helping to create and protect those spaces for us. That is all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device?
There are a few places in our neighborhoods that are
Hello, caller.
pressures and negative influences that youth face every day. By adding
Caller.
youth centers to the list, we'll be helping.
Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Tylen Johnson. I live on the southeast side of Grand Rapids, and I am a junior at City High Middle School. I am writing to you. I'm talking to you guys tonight to ask that you please place youth centers on the list of sensitive land uses. A few months ago, I came before the Planning Commission to ask that they not grant a waiver for a dispensary to open across the street from my church youth center. Religious institutions are already on the list of sensitive land uses. It was so frustrating to sit at the commission meeting and wait for 2 hours for this topic to come up. And I think it would be really wise and critical to eliminate waivers, which puts everyone in frustrating positions. I think it would simplify things for the Planning Commission. Youth centers mean a lot to me as well. My life changed forever when I joined the youth center in my city. One of the things I love is that they brought me an opportunity to really feel how I could be as a team who is a leader in my community. I can't imagine that you wouldn't want to add youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses. I think it is critical, and with American consideration, please add youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses. Thanks for hearing my voice.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Yes, you have 3 minutes. Can you please turn the volume down on your device? Your time starts now.
Okay. So I am Harley. My name is Eric Foster. I live in It's good that the city is still looking at how it can improve the processing of opportunities through the ordinance for business for medical marijuana. But there are two key issues that are going forward. One, limiting the focus to adding new micro businesses in by itself. If you're a medically pre-qualified entity, and there are some in the state who've been bumped out because of the separation distance between retailers, it doesn't make sense for you to go your medical marijuana pre-qualified to go to micro business on the recreational side because you're limited by state law under MC 3.27 959. You can't have multiples. So that is something that would be actually negative in your business and if you're a local entity. I think there's a better way
look at addressing, creating more spacing, because the other thing, right now, if you don't do any of the changes to the zoning distance, there's not going to be any additional 65 properties that are either currently business really hard to go for. So to go forward and micro businesses to retail, don't do any distance in between, and you're not really creating any new opportunity. And for those medically pre-qual approved entities that either Grand Rapids or own property, they're not getting an opportunity because they can't also have micro business license. Communities, they have to forego that. So
I'm sorry, if I can interrupt, Daniel, I'm having a challenging time hearing the caller. I don't know if I'm the only one, but most of what he's saying, I can't make out. And I don't know if he should try to call back, or what can be done, but that's just me on my end. Can anyone else confirm that they're hearing him okay?
Yeah, there was a difficult connection.
Yes.
If he calls back. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
My name is Jim Bartels, and I live in Northeast Grand Rapids. I work full-time mentoring and working with youth in the Creston community, and have done so for the past 18 years. And I'm calling to express my desire to have the addition of youth centers added to the list of sensitive land uses. And I'd also like to request the elimination of waivers around those land uses. In my ongoing experience, marijuana has had significant negative impacts on the youth that I've been working with. And if we really value the youth in our communities, we need to take action and protect them. One of the ways that we can demonstrate how we value them is to limit their exposure to anything that can harm them. And also my thought is eliminating waivers will save a lot of time and money, which both time and money can be reinvested in our youth as they're our future leaders, and it's really important to invest in them. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
Good evening. My name is Steve Van Poelen, and I'm a resident of Grand Rapids, Michigan, executive pastor at Crossroads Bible Church. And I'm just calling in support of protecting the youth centers in Grand Rapids as it relates to this ordinance and the establishment of dispensaries. Not a ton to comment other than I would love to see the very few places that we have around Grand Rapids that are specifically designed to serve inner city youth. I'm a part of not only the church, but 3 other organizations that serve inner city youth, Bridge Street Ministries, Realism is Loyalty, and Community Kids. I would love to see these centers, like I said, very few of them, protected in a way. From my vantage point, and I know I don't have the same vantage point as you all do, I don't see any good reason not to protect the very few youth centers. So I'd really love to see the city kind of protect the youth in this way, knowing that activity as it relates to marijuana, of course, is illegal for youth anyway. So appreciate your time and your consideration and all the hard work that you commissioners put in every day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Yes, my name is Derek Owens. I live in Grand Rapids. I'm the lead club director for the Boys and Girls Clubs in the same community that which they want to propose site. And I just want to vehemently disagree with putting a medical marijuana facility in our community, especially close to the kids. I think it just sends out the wrong message, and it's going to leave a telling legacy in the history for Grand Rapids community. So I'm very against it. I just want to say, please, commissioners, find another place. Thanks much. Take care.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hi, Commission. This is Aaron Smith from Grand Haven, Michigan. I'm calling on behalf of AgriMed. I want to touch on a few points. I know you've gotten a few letters from us, and I wanted to, again, reiterate the fact that in order for us to operate a medical marijuana provisioning center in a highly competitive market that also allows for adult use retailers, we must be afforded the same opportunities to provide state licensed cannabis to the adult use population. The significant investment, jobs, and training we have already committed to the medical marijuana provisioning center can only be maintained in an adult use market by being granted the same opportunity as other retail facilities. Allowing an approved park waiver for medical marijuana to be applied to the licensing application for adult use is the first step towards building a successful long-term state licensed marijuana facility that will continue to grow and create jobs and opportunities for the residents of Grand Rapids. AgriMed and our company has a proven track record of operating both medical and adult use facilities in the state of Michigan. The communities that we operate in can attest to our ability to operate in accordance with their best interest and laws. And again, I would like to remind you that the park waiver that was granted was recommended by you, the commission, as well as completely approved by the Planning Commission. And we hope you take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Thank you. My name is Derek Sterenberg. I live in the city of Grand Rapids. I'm joining my voice to advocate for the addition of youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses and the proposed zoning ordinance to allow recreational marijuana dispensaries in Grand Rapids. In my experience, youth centers are a safe place for youth in our neighborhoods, and they need to be protected, just like we're protecting schools, churches, parks, and other places like that. To miss youth centers in our city would be to miss a large population of youth in many safe spaces that I believe very strongly need to be protected. There is growing body of research and evidence showing negative impacts of marijuana on youth. And for that reason, primarily, I believe youth centers need to be added. And I would just add in closing that if the term youth centers is too vague or broad, Grand Rapids has a rich heritage of many experts in the field of youth, youth advocacy, and youth development that I'm sure could help to define this definition and protect more young people in our city. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Can you please lower the volume on your device?
Experts in the field of youth.
Hello, caller. Please lower the volume on your device.
Hello?
Hi, can you lower the volume on your device, please?
Oh, yes.
You have 3 minutes with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
All right. Hello, my name is LaShawn Manuel, and I work for Calvin University, but I'm also a youth pastor at Lighthouse for Life Center Church. And I just wanted to call in to put my voice on eliminating waivers in general for sensitive land areas, but also including youth centers in that proclamation of eliminating. Or I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous here, but I want to make sure my voice is heard. But also adding youth centers to the sensitive land areas. And my motion for that is I think about all the youth that I work with. I think about their stories and how a lot of them grew up in homes where addictions was around and criminal backgrounds and just different things like that. And I feel like if they see that, if they have dispensaries in their area, that is going to trigger something that is going to remind them of a way that they're trying to get away from. And although it is deemed medical, we must be honest about the abuse, that can be abused very easily. And so I just wanted to make sure that we add youth centers to that list and that we eliminate waivers as a whole. And on another note, I want to say I agree with Whitney Houston when she said that she believes children are our future. I completely agree with that. And when you think about it, a lot of people that use weed or just marijuana in general for non-medical reasons, they started when they were younger. So if we can start working with our youth now and eliminate that, then there's power in that. So again, I vote to add youth centers to sensitive land areas, as well as eliminating waivers for churches and sensitive areas in general. And that is all I have. And thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Wonderful. My name is Joe Spalding. I am in Oakland, California, formerly 10 years in Baxter neighborhood, and before that, a few decades in Holland. You might remember me from the time that I helped beat the DeFontes back and ended gerrymandering in Michigan in 2018. I ran strategy on the petition program for voters, not politicians, and I wanted to talk about this ordinance just a little bit. I wanted to say that the best way that we could possibly decrease child use of cannabis is to put a recreational dispensary across from every school so students can see their parents, their leaders, their teachers, their jerk bosses, their city commissioners re-up their stash. Not to mention the orphan bedheads, the fish fans, the Just Dimash voters, and the actual real Dutch people that grew up in the real Netherlands. Some people will take this as a joke, but there is as much actual data in this speech so far as there has been collectively in every speech in favor of the ordinance. As a side, it seems to me that having churches on the list is very much akin to spitting in the face of God. Is the city implying that God is infinite, not omnipotent, saying that he is completely inept and not ineffable? Is he unable to protect kids in his own backyard? I'm calling Reefer Madness malarkey on this, and I really hope that we stop kowtowing to the exact same NIMBYs that Donald Trump is trying to play to when he's saying that the suburbs are under attack. Let's have some reason when we think about this. Let's look at the data. Kids aren't at risk when there's cannabis dispensaries, and whether or not it's illegal taking from the people that have these businesses, it's definitely an immoral taking if we stop them from being able to sell recreational cannabis. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hi, my name is Miriam Young, and I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Thank you for taking my call. I'm calling because I want to ask you to please add youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses. I'm the program director at a local youth center, New City Kids, and currently youth centers are not given any consideration in the current rules. And we really just want to urge you to consider adding them, because our youth face enough challenges in our community simply just walking to get to youth centers. I would love it if our city leaders thought of the impact that normalizing the idea that our urban core is where we should just expect liquor stores and dispensaries. Also, we don't want our youth to get the picture that marijuana is an expected thing to do when they grow up. The things that our students see every day really does impact and influence and shape their future. And allowing dispensaries to open up near youth centers tells them what we expect them to grow into. So one way that we think you as a leader can help kids to see what you expect of them is to add youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses. And we want to know that you think our children deserve a safe space in our city that's distanced from things that we don't expect children to do. And finally, we would ask that you would please just make sure that waivers are removed in this process. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hello, Commission. My name is Maurice Townsend, and I am the music director here at New City Kids here in Grand Rapids, and I'm also a business owner here on the southeast side of Grand Rapids. I'm calling today that you to ask that you please add youth centers
to the list of sensitive land uses. We spent a lot of time in the city trying to open the doors to cannabis businesses. That's great. However, we haven't thought through clearly what the impact on youth will be. We need to make sure that we add youth centers because that organizations like ours at New City Kids, we wouldn't even know that there was a business going in next door. Our kids need places. They need places that are designated for them. I know that we've said that we want to make sure that we create equitable opportunity for everyone, but I also think that we need to make sure that we send a message to our youth and their youth centers that we're creating safe spaces for them. I'm more than willing to volunteer my time to help define what a youth center is. Please include us on that conversation. We are very happy to help ensure that the people both have businesses and that youth centers are protected. Further, I am asking that you please eliminate waivers in this process. If a space is considered sensitive, then just let it be that. Sensitive spaces should, it should just remain, sensitive. With the recent shootings in my neighborhood here on the Southeast side, has just been very heartbreaking for me. I know that the root cause of these shootings are not dispensaries. However, I believe that we all should work together to help protect youth centers and the work that has already started in those areas. So I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing our city have safe places designated for youth to both thrive and lead. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device? Thank you. You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Christy Carlin Kinetch, and I am the Executive Director at New City Kids. First, I want to thank you for the hours of hard work you've poured in to ensure that an equitable process for citizens to engage in the cannabis business, and also making sure that local folks are given priority. You've worked so hard at that. In our state, voters made it possible for adults to have the right to choose where and if they'll purchase legal, recreational, or medical marijuana. And I believe that we can open doors for business owners while still ensuring we have land uses that are deemed sensitive. I work with hundreds of kids each week, and I'm trying to help them to discover their potential as leaders. This week I came to work and I found bullet holes in the windows of the youth center days before we opened our doors this past Tuesday or Monday. And those bullet holes reminded me of what's happening daily outside the walls of our youth center. Zoning is not going to protect anyone from bullets, but zoning can help to send messages about where kids belong. And many of the kids in our area face stresses, pressures, and fears that are overwhelming them. Youth centers throughout our city are working overtime to try to engage kids and helping them find healing as well as grow in their potential to be leaders. I'm asking that you would please add youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses. I think there are plenty of places that are appropriate locations for dispensaries. By adding youth centers to the list, I think it shows children and teenagers that they are also a priority alongside our business owners. I know that there isn't clarity on what a youth center is, and so please consider engaging youth development professionals to determine what a definition could be of a youth center for the city. There's plenty of experience from professionals from the health department, local schools, leaders at the Boys and Girls Club, and our organization that would be happy to help sit in defining what that is. I would also ask for the elimination of waivers. I never thought a dispensary would really want to be open next door to a youth center until last year when I attended Planning Commission meetings to oppose a waiver that was requested by a dispensary trying to open up in my neighborhood next to a sensitive land use. The waiver process was unclear and it overwhelmed nonprofits, neighbors, and neighborhood associations who were already overwhelmed just trying to navigate the other things that they were responsible for. By eliminating waivers, you'll bring needed clarity for our Planning Commission to have clear guidelines on where dispensaries should go. Finally, I'd like to ask you to consider to clarify the ordinance around what the rules would be if you sell a dispensary. So if a local business owner grows a great business, can they sell to a national entity like a Philip Morris without having to go through community engagement process again? I would like to make sure that if they sell, neighbors would still be that they would be required to engage a new owner through a planning commission process as well. So thanks again for your hard work. We appreciate everything you guys are doing.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Yes, thank you for taking public comments. I'm calling to, I would like to see youth centers added to the buffer zones for recreational marijuana distribution dispensaries. I work with urban youth. I live in the city of Grand Rapids. I work with urban youth. My name is Tom Bradley. Sorry. And I think most people it's established that there's a lot of negative consequences with minors' exposure to marijuana. I understand that these dispensaries are not for youth, but nonetheless, they're in close proximity to it if there's a dispensary near youth centers. I know that the buffer zones include things like parks, churches, places of worship, child care facilities. I would like youth centers to be added to that list. I think that will be very helpful. I just think that the negative consequences, I've seen it personally with urban youth and their exposure to marijuana. I think it's really hurting our urban youth, and appreciate you taking public comments and listening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Mario Torres, and I'm calling tonight from the northwest side of Grand Rapids. I'm a freshman at City High Middle School, and I would like to ask you to please add youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses. As teenagers, we need to see our leaders ask us to rise up and make positive choices that will make our lives better. As kids, our brains are more impacted by the THC that is marijuana than adults' brains are. That is why cannabis is reserved for those who are over 20. As a young leader, I want to see our city zone dispensaries so that they aren't allowed to open up next door in close range to places where children and teens hang out. Youth centers are places where a lot of kids who don't always have safe places to be can go and not have to worry about being pressured to make or bad choices. Please hear our voices tonight and let the kids and teens in our city know that they are valued and that we have spaces zoned for kids to be kids. Please add youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses, and please do not allow for waivers to be granted. That's all I have to say. Good night.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device? You have 3 minutes with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
Hi, this is Erica Curry-Vanny calling from Grand Rapids, and just want to say thank you to all of you. I know that you've been listening for quite some time now, and I actually really appreciate the fact that I have the opportunity to follow a youth and a youth voice, because I think that's truly the most important voice that we need to hear right now. I know many of you from a lot of different roles that I've played over the years, but my first love and my career has really been 30 years in youth development. And as a professional in the field of youth development, I chose to go into this field because I really believe in longevity of relationship, and a lot of our young people don't have that consistent, steady adult role model that they so desperately need. I know that because I was one of those kids. And were it not for a youth group leader and a Girl Scout leader, I can say I probably wouldn't have made it through those years. So to me, this is the logic behind this. My request is that you, of course, add youth centers. And here's why I would say that, because to not add youth centers really makes no sense. When you think about it, we're looking at all places where, pre-K through 12th grade reside. We've included schools, we've included daycare centers. Why would we not include youth centers? In fact, I would dare say that youth centers is a place we absolutely need to protect. We have all the data that shows us those times after school in the summer, having safe and structured and supportive people and programs are essential for physical, emotional, spiritual and social development of a human being. And so I just think it makes sense if we're going to include schools and daycare centers, we absolutely should include youth centers, programs like the Mayor's Youth Council and others that are just really so crucial. So I'm a huge fan and in absolute favor of this legislation. I think it's going to really bring wonderful things in terms of economic opportunity to historically marginalized populations. I am a huge fan of decriminalization. So I just commend you for taking this step, and I'm going to ask you to step up and lead boldly and also protect our youngest citizens as well. And add the youth centers to the list, work with youth development professionals to help you define what those are. But generally, they are places where young people go for structured activities multiple days a week. And I know you have worked in these directly, commissioners, as well. And these are also programs near and dear to your heart. So thanks for your time. Thanks for listening. And just appreciate all of you and the work you do. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device? You have 3 minutes with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
Cindy calling from Muskegon. I believe the board should allow waivers to be transferred to the corresponding adult use applications. Not doing so could potentially be damaging to existing medical businesses. And when walking by these businesses, you cannot tell from the outside what these businesses are. And if somebody does happen to get into one of these businesses, they will be stopped at the door. These are very safe businesses for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hi, my name is Mariela Aguilar, and I'm 17 years old, and I attend Washington Preparatory High School here in Grand Rapids. I live on Barnett Street in the Crescent neighborhood, where a lot of dispensaries have already been approved for giving waivers. And first, I would like to ask that you eliminate waivers for recreational marijuana dispensaries, because it seems to have already caused a lot of confusion, and it makes sense that sensitive land uses remain sensitive. And second, I'd like to ask you to please consider putting youth dispensaries on the list of sensitive land uses. I have friends who suffer from a lot of trauma in their lives and a lot of mental illnesses, and some of them have already started using marijuana or other drugs to deal with their emotional pain and with their problems. And even though you're supposed to be 21 to use marijuana or other drugs, or to even buy them, I feel like they're really easy to get. They're so easy to get. I feel like so many people talk about like marijuana specifically, and I feel like it would just be easier if you guys would put dispensaries 1,000 feet away from these centers, because many people seek to use those drugs or to use those substances to cope with their issues or to just get away from the world. And I feel like if there's too many dispensaries nearby our youth centers, then it can be really triggering for those people. And if we put those dispensaries further away, then it could give us a break from all that stuff and help us make us better choices. Thanks for considering our thoughts. Good night.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Good evening, Grand Rapids policymakers. My name is Maggie Rivera, and I'm a City of Grand Rapids East Hills resident. Tonight I'm asking that you please eliminate the sensitive use waiver loophole for the marijuana dispensaries and research centers. Please consider including private and public youth centers in all matters of sensitive land use, just like child development centers, schools, parks, and churches. The Planning Commission may have chosen profit over people. Mayor and city commissioners, please choose policy that guards and supports the well-being of all of our youth, our communities, and specifically and especially BIPOC communities in the city of Grand Rapids. As already stated, decades of research into the proximity and density of alcohol outlets in the cities, like GR, have already shown that direct correlation in increased underage alcohol use with proximities to the outlets. As a community organizer and a public-private charter and school employee and former elected official who researched, studied, and made policy for youth for over 25 years, I have yet to see policy and practice that supports youth over profit regarding alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana now in Michigan. That's unfortunate. I'm hoping that tonight we can celebrate and elevate our youth because the return on investment is impactful for generations to come, as well as we all know that racism is now considered a health crisis. So all of the industries, tobacco, alcohol, marijuana, that are part of the systemic racist system that we have are also liable for that racism as well. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hello, my name is Jermel Eddy. I'm here in the wonderful city of Grand Rapids, 3rd Ward, and I am calling to also sign on that youth centers should also fall under the lines of what the churches are falling under for recreation and medical marijuana facilities, to have that distance away from them. I also believe that once someone has jumped through all the hoops, that we want to be mindful of changing the finish line, so to speak, and changing things for those that have already did what they need to do, and then putting yet another barrier. I know that can be a touchy subject right there, but thinking about the fairness of that. Also, I believe that if we add youth centers, we need to have a definition of what is a youth center as well across the board. Same thing with any other things that we put in place. Having a definition of what that is would help people from being confused on what is and what isn't. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Eric Foster, East Lansing, with Banks and Company. I got disconnected early, apologize. I was calling because a couple things. One, with respect to the separation distances and sensitive uses, I do believe that leaving the waiver model in for the faith-based organizations that in the 1st Ward and 2nd Ward have already exhibited an interest in working with the licensees and applicants is not a bad thing, because there's been an opportunity to incentivize and create some good community partnerships that, whereas some of the faith-based organizations in the 3rd Ward may not be there, but they do have the ability to weigh in and provide their feedback as well. And the Planning Commission has the ability to take that in and move forward from there. I think, though, that there's a second issue, which is if the goal is to create some new license opportunities, you have right now medical marijuana pre-qual applicants that are Grand Rapids residents and or that have property in Grand Rapids who are buffered out because of the current buffering between the retail locations or the buffering in industrial areas for growers. Modifications to that would allow for those entities to still have a chance to be in the market, because it's not feasible for them to drop their medical pre-qualification and go for a micro business. Under the current state law, micro businesses only are allowed to have one location, one license, that's it. And so if you're pre-qual for medical marijuana, you'd have to drop that, apply for the micro business to only be in one location versus your business plan, which was to potentially use Grand Rapids to start and then grow as a Michigan business in the other markets. That really gets away from what we're hoping to do. And some of these pre-qual applicants are minority applicants from the city. So looking at reducing the separation, keeping the waiver system so that faith-based groups who do want to work with the industry have those opportunities, and not adding any additional restrictive measures to land use would be a good thing, because you don't have any developable property available right now under current structure for our land use assessment. And we can provide any of that information if needed. I think we have provided a lot of stuff. And I've got 5 seconds. Thank you all.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
My name is Tracy Powers, and I am with Agromed. I'm in Muskegon, Michigan, and I was calling to also add my voice to the sentiment that the previous caller mentioned about changing the finish line. We've been doing it as sensitive use permit, and we would like very much for that to be transferred to a recreational application so that our business can remain viable. In addition, I've been listening to a lot of the comments, and I certainly understand the concerns regarding use. I was a dairy mom myself. Our facilities are safe, secure, and mandated to not allow anyone under the age of 21 into a recreational facility, unlike liquor stores and party stores in the neighborhoods surrounding these establishments. In addition, we are currently working with the Muskegon County Health Department to develop educational materials on dosage and safe and how to keep products safe and secure. And also with the Ottawa County Health Department, we are working with them on developing an educational program and seminars on how cannabis does affect adolescent brains. So we're very cognizant of our duties to the community, and we plan to do whatever we can to be a contributing member and a good thing in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device? Hello, caller? Caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device? You have 3 minutes. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
This is Ryan Jimerson, Executive Director of C. Supremus, and I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Sir, can you turn the volume down on your device?
Yes. Yes, it's now.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'll restart the clock.
Okay. The coronavirus has highlighted the inequities of our healthcare systems.
Sir, we're talking about the medical marijuana amendment changes.
You're right, but it leads into that because our residents have already voiced their concerns with over 500 signatures that have been submitted to keep dispensaries out of our area. And one of the things I heard from one of the earlier callers is that let's look at the data. The data is clear. And, I just thank God for the city commissioners, because if the decision was theirs, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. And so I just want to share a little of the data. The data clearly shows that children living in poverty, with many in dysfunctional families, are traumatized before even entering the school system. And their depressed brains can't learn. Add another stumbling block of marijuana dispensaries. It just adds to the dilemma that our residents are facing who are already living in poverty. And these kids basically are experiencing ADHD, STSD,
because of their lack of self-regulations, unable to focus, and many of them end up dropping out of schools. And then the National Center for Education Statistics clearly states that 74% of every person in American prison dropped out of school. The majority of people on welfare dropped out of school. 36% of those with a learning disability drop out of school. And then these dropouts are 240% that have kids that drop out, meaning these kids are raised in dysfunctional families who are now going to be influenced by marijuana dispensaries. And the residents' positions are that we need to eliminate the waivers and add youth centers to the variance. And I thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Good evening. My name is Veronica Williams. I am a resident in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I work with children, teens, youth, and young adults across this city. My call tonight is to ask you to seriously add youth centers to the list of sensitive land uses. The children and teens in Grand Rapids are history makers and world changers. They need places that are dedicated to them, with adults and leaders creating a positive atmosphere with programs that are going to enhance positive influence, growth, and development. To simplify the process for everyone involved, save the city time, effort, and money. Also eliminate the waiver process. Please listen to all of the requests that have come before me, supporting as I do and asking you to make this addition. Feel the passion that is exuding from every caller. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hey, good evening, City Commissioners. My name is Kevin Chang. I reside in Grosse Pointe Woods. I represent a stakeholder business in the city of Grand Rapids. I strongly support the adoption of the Planning Director and Planning Commission recommendation on the zoning text amendment. As stated by Ms. Turkelston in the beginning of this public comment, Planning Commission has discussed this issue at length and stated their reason in ample form for not including youth centers as described in the agenda packet under the City Com agenda item description. Now, I'm sympathetic to the public comments tonight. I believe in the event the City Commission decides to include youth centers as an additional setback, perhaps a reduced buffer distance requirement can be considered before City Commission. I also encourage the City Commissioners to respect the Planning Commission's recommendation and the work they've done to put together this recommendation. I also strongly support the current handful of established land use medical marijuana provision centers with waiver approvals to transfer their waivers to recreational application before Planning Commission. I believe this is a necessary move to make to provide a fair and competitive marketplace. Many of these existing provision centers have invested thousands of dollars into purchasing, leasing, real estates, and building out their facilities. Grand Rapids, under its current medical marijuana ordinance, has a mechanism in place for applicants to obtain this waiver from these sensitive uses. And these handful of provision centers owner, as stated by Ms. Turkelston earlier in this conversation, has gone through the Planning Commission hearing, worked with city staff, and obtained the waivers through this mechanism. I strongly believe that allowing these existing provision centers with waiver approval an opportunity to apply for a waiver with their recreational permit would not be overly burdensome to the city. So I ask the City Commission to consider and take under consideration the Planning Commissioners and Planning Director recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device?
Okay.
You have 3 minutes with the city commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Your time starts now.
Good evening. My name is Jayshawn Cooper. I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I am 16 years old. I attend Covenant House Academy, and I live on the southwest side of Granville Avenue. And I want to ask you to please eliminate the waivers for dispensaries and show us that you value the youth in this city by making the youth centers a part of sensitive land use. I'm really trying to be a positive teenager in the world. It feels like every day we are being bombarded with opportunities to do the wrong thing or things that aren't really good for us. Weed is one of those things. That's a lot of youth that really thinks it's a big deal. For those of us who don't want to get involved, that we find youth centers to be a place where we can be ourselves, go there, have fun anytime we want to. Like, find more people that can be like us. So please make this sensitive. Please make them a sensitive land use. We need your help. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the city commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hi, this is Charles Rock McCollin. I live in the city of Grand Rapids. I want to start out by saying that anyone under the age of 21 is not allowed into a recreational marijuana facility. At the same time, I don't think it's a bad idea to add youth centers to the requirements for a business to apply for a license when applying with waivers. I strongly believe that existing medical facilities should be allowed to apply for a recreational license, even with waivers. The specific type of waiver and location of a facility in relation to the sensitive use area should be taken into consideration when granting a license. The medical facility that was granted a license nearby the intersection of Fuller and Michigan Avenue is not clearly visible from the road and is not nearby any youth facility. This means this facility is the perfect fit for a recreational provisioning center. I believe that you should not blanket ban medical facilities that have already been approved by the City Commission with waivers to apply for a recreational license. This is very unfair and unjust. The City of Grand Rapids should look at each applicant individually to determine if that facility is still a good fit for the community, even if it has waivers. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, can you please lower the volume on your device? Caller, can you hear me?
Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you please lower the volume on your device? Thank you. You have 3 minutes with the city commission. Your time starts now. Please state your name and the city in which you live.
Hello, my name is Stacia Huxama. I live in Grand Rapids. I'm a resident of the Madison community, mother of 4 teenagers, and member of Madison Square Church. I want to thank the commissioners for your work on this issue over the past month. I want to be clear that I am not against medical marijuana and that I am in favor of economic development in this city. And I recognize the desire for communities that have been historically impacted by the criminalization of marijuana to now, in fact, be benefiting from that. So I recognize that. However, I am grateful that the elimination of waivers is something the commission is considering, and I would like to advocate for the elimination of waivers as well as advocate for adding youth centers to that. Though this was not an issue that I was expecting to spend time on, due to the location of our church, we were thrust into this conversation because there was a dispensary requesting a waiver from our church. Hours and hours have spent meeting with neighbors and neighborhood partners who were also impacted by these proposed waiver requests. And though I've learned a lot through this process, things I
know I needed to know. And many of my initial assumptions about marijuana dispensaries were challenged. This has been an overwhelming and frustrating process for many people, and it really did take important time away from the primary mission of many, many organizations in our community. And we did all of this work only to face another requested waiver just down the road a little bit a few months later, which forced us to begin this process again. So this is just one example and one reason why I'm thankful that eliminating the waivers is being proposed. And I do thank the commissioners because I believe that this was in response to some of the requests that we made in previous meetings. So thank you for your responsiveness. I also want to add that much of the challenge of both of those proposed dispensaries was that they were in very close proximity to two different youth centers. So it was partially an issue connected to the church, but primarily the way that was going to impact the two youth centers. There have been lots of compelling arguments made tonight by many thoughtful people in this city who work directly with students. Many students themselves have spoken, so I won't repeat these, but I think they're important to reiterate. Finally, I wonder about the argument that it's too difficult to know how many youth centers there are. I believe there are many capable individuals in this city who can work to identify youth centers and provide guidelines to address the concern that was raised that the designation of youth centers are too vague and that they could result in frivolous designations. So I do think that there are plenty
Thank
of
you, caller. That's 3
to help us
minutes.
with that.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now. Hello, caller. Hello, caller. You're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hi, yes, my name is Josh Colton. I'm an attorney. I'm out of St. Joseph, Michigan, and I work with Greenstone, Michigan, which is one of the applicants who received their special use permit for a provisioning center under the medical marijuana program and is now being hampered in their ability to move forward in their business due to the current status of the ordinance as it relates to the lack of the waiver opportunity. In achieving the waiver for our location, a substantial amount of effort was made to work with the community and to gain acceptance into that community for the desired use. And I feel that denying that at this point greatly inhibits our ability to move forward as a business and to stay competitive after having spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to participate in this business. So overall, I would say that I would strongly support the planning director's recommendation. Furthermore, as it relates to the youth center reuse, I'm extremely sympathetic and completely agree that it is very important and instrumental for us to be looking out for our youth in the communities, and the potential for drug abuse of minors is extremely important. However, I also think one of the things that's lacked significantly from a lot of the talking points that have been discussed by many of the concerned citizens is that the only studies that I've been able to identify as it relates to increase of marijuana legalization and its impact on youth have actually shown that it's either had no significant impact or actually had a decreased impact. The reasons proposed, although these are not, these are just hypotheticals or projected reasons, are that one, increased access to legal marijuana in licensed regulated facilities for 21 and up individuals actually decreases the competition on the illegal market, which is where most of these individuals are much more likely to be able to acquire product. The second reason they said is because these states, and I think we have a lot of work to do in this regard, and it's been discussed by, I know, other business owners and other members of the community, is to increase education. I think that Grand Rapids has a strong duty to help educate their citizens and in turn provide systems in which to educate their youth about the harms and potential issues surrounding marijuana use, and the businesses need to work to prohibit that. I believe the state has put in force very strong regulations to support this.
and I believe that there's a path forward in this direction, but I can't find strong evidence to show that there's a correlation between the amount of or location of these facilities versus the exit versus the resulting youth abuse. So I have to side with the planning director's recommendation in that regard as well. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Yep. I'm Jimmy Arizola. I support preserving and protecting the youth centers. It wasn't me that chose people to go out into the city, which proven that the greater majority of the citizens that live within the community that are of color live in fear. The children of color live in fear in their communities, in their homes. One of these youth spoke on attending City High Middle School, another one coming out of the corridor of Southwest, Granville Avenue. If children are in fear of the community of the police, I think it affects their grades in school. And if we have more dog parks than we do youth centers, which I believe at least 3 were established in the last 2 years, I think we have less boys and girls clubs than we do dog parks. If we're going to protect the youth, and they're afraid of the police in their homes, and their parents are, at the very least, we need to support and protect the youth and the people that want more youth centers. I wanted to ask Reverend Moody, and that's because I read in his bio, and I also participated in it also. Where are the bookmobiles? It sounds kind of silly, but those bookmobiles made a difference. I don't believe there's any more places where kids can go to cadets. And then these churches had these programs they would take you camping, things like that I did as a kid. Southwest Little League is totally gone because of the decommissioning of past and current leadership of the city of Grand Rapids. And I'm talking about Roberto Clemente Park. Those fields were removed. Kensington Park. A lot of the full court basketball courts that were at the Southwest campus at that time, gentrification, and in Spanish we say gentrification, has occurred because they're renaming like Franklin School Southwest campus. Reverend Moody once again brought up Lookout Mountain. It's now called Belknap. There's too much of that going on also. But where what's happening, I mean, 3 of you guys have participated as school board members, but the kids are locked out of the basketball courts or the fields or the parts of the schools where they would play or where I played.
Caller, that's 3 minutes. Thank you, caller.
Yeah, thank you too.
Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. Can you please lower the volume on your device? You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hello, Commissioners. Thank you for all the work that you do for the city, and thank you for all the items on today's agenda. My name is Leslie Wyman, and I currently live in Granville. I'm a PhD candidate studying Parkinson's disease at Van Andel Institute in Grand Rapids, and I'm currently working to start up a licensed safety compliance facility in Grand Rapids, which is to ensure the safety and quality of cannabis in our community. I'm also the treasurer of the West Michigan Cannabis Guild, which is made up of over 200 members throughout West Michigan and Grand Rapids. And I'm calling in to represent those members who weren't able to call in today to weigh in on the proposed zoning ordinance amendment for adult cannabis use. We are in favor of allowing the Planning Commission to grant separation distance waivers. We strongly oppose removing such waivers unless at least one or more separation distance requirements is removed. This will help balance the loss of eligible property. The waiver is important for giving flexibility to neighborhoods where cannabis facility may be desired. Secondly, we are in favor of allowing microbusinesses in the city, and we support considering new locations for microbusinesses or other cannabis facilities, especially in neighborhoods that desire them. We support allowing microbusinesses with director review, which allows the planning director to approve or deny applications. This would avoid the time and expense of a special land use hearing, but would still allow neighborhood engagement. Lastly, we support previously approved substantive use waivers to be transferred to new applications. It is a fair and reasonable action that will support the newest part of the Grand Rapids economy. In general, we are in favor of expanding opportunity in cannabis industry for Grand Rapids. And I think it's worth noting that despite the current economic and political crises, cannabis businesses have been thriving and are providing important employment opportunities, economic activity, and medical products for our residents and neighborhood communities. Speaking as a PhD in neuroscience, there is truly very little scientific evidence supporting the negative side effects of cannabis, which have been claimed by previous callers. For those who may need to hear this, cannabis does not kill brain cells. In fact, cannabis has been actually shown to enhance the proliferation of a subset of neural precursor cells. And while more research needs to be done to fully understand cannabis exposure during development, a longitudinal study published in the Journal of Drug and Alcohol Dependence in 2019 showed that adolescent cannabis use is not associated with structural brain differences in adulthood. The false and ill-informed narratives that have been shared by callers today have got to end, and our community needs to be better informed about the potential risks and benefits of cannabis consumption. Rather than making rules based on moral qualms and personal anecdotes, the city needs to start developing an evidence-based approach to cannabis regulation so that patients and consumers have safe and accessible medicine.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you for...
Mayor, that was the last caller.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, we'll go ahead and close that public comment period, and we will discuss that issue further at our next Committee of the Whole meeting. So that will take us to our second public hearing tonight. This is a public hearing to consider past performance and future needs of housing and community development programs. So before opening this up for public comment, I will have Ms. Bohatch give us just an overview of this item. And then for those watching who want to call in, again, a reminder, you call 456-3000 or 311, hit the number 1 and then number 3. So Ms. Bohatch, you want to tell us about this?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tonight we are asking citizens to comment on 2 different issues related to housing and community development programs. The first is in regard to program performance that's compiled in the draft federal fiscal year 2019 consolidated annual performance evaluation report, which we refer to as the CAPER. This document contains both fiscal and program performance information for activities that are carried out from July 1, 2019 through June 30th of 2020 using Community Development Block Grant, home investment partnerships, and the Emergency Solutions Grant Program funds. The draft report has been available on our website at www.grcd.info and will continue to be available for comments even after tonight. We will accept written comments through September 18th. The second area is in regard to community needs related to housing and community development programs. In particular, those same funding sources, CDBG, home, and ESG programs. Any comments that we receive tonight regarding that will contribute to the development of our next 5-year consolidated plan, which we are in the process of undertaking starting even this week. And we'll accept written comments in relation to this comment period through September 18th for that purpose as well, but it's not the last opportunity that people will have. We will have surveys available starting the end of the month to provide input for our next plan, as well as planning some public input sessions in October. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bohatch. All right, we'll go ahead and open up this opportunity for public comment. Daniel, do we have anyone in the queue?
We do. Here comes the first caller.
All right, thank you.
Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hi, this is
Cheryl Fitzgerald and Jamila Mon. We are program managers at Community Rebuilders. And we just wanted to come and give some comments because, we've seen the way that these programs have impacted our consumers. So we just wanted to provide some data and details in that regard.
So this is Jamila. Sorry. I just want to quickly go over one of the programs that we operate at Community Builders, which is the ESG program. And this program Community Builders has been operating this program for quite some time. It is designed to increase housing affordability for low-income households. Rental assistance is provided for a period of 6 months, and participants contribute 30% of their income towards housing. So just a few outcome numbers from the last contract year. The program resulted in an average of 32 days for participants to move into housing and off of the street, and a 98% positive exit rate to permanent housing. Cheryl?
Yeah, I am the program manager for the short-term rental assistance home program. And we have some outcome measures as well. 14% of adults in our program had a history of domestic violence. And 21% of adults entered with no income. After our assistance, 97% of households exited to permanent housing, which means they remained stable in their housing. So our programs have just had some really good outcomes, and we would appreciate continued funding.
Is that all?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, callers. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes on this topic. Your time starts now.
Good evening. I watched Doug Miller. Back in previous years, I've gone through the 80-page paper, and there was never an index in back, for example, referencing non-smoking, banning on any kind of smoking in thoroughly built facilities. The second, the requirement to pay a fee for rooming houses. I mean, that's how people used to start out in these cities in previous generations. The rooming houses should be brought back and should not be harassed. Finally, we have thousands of illegal aliens in town, as you've recognized by you. You recently had the agenda item to feed these families. So work that into frankly, if illegal aliens were run off under federal law, we'd have the so-called market price of housing will go way down. Thank you ever so much for what's reporting right now.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Mayor, there are no more callers in the queue.
All right. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that. We'll go ahead and close that public comment period, and it'll take us to our last scheduled public hearing tonight. And this is a public hearing to hear appeals on special assessment nuisance 875. So we sit as appeals body, so we'll hear any appeals tonight. To get us started, I will turn it over to Paula, and then I'll open it up for public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Can you hear me good?
Yes.
Thank you. So this special assessment comes from unpaid invoices of property owners for miscellaneous charges for light violations, yard violations, snow removal, housing certifications. And tonight is the last night for the last opportunity for the property owners to file an appeal. To date, we have received 14 appeals, and we've had the assessment roll available for 10 days for public inspection. Plus, we've also put it on the city website under special assessments. So property owners were notified July 30th, and They were notified of the assessment and the method to file an appeal. So tonight's their last opportunity, and I will let it go to hear the appeals. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Paula. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up this public comment period. Daniel, do we have anyone in the queue?
At this time, there's no one in the queue, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Daniel. We'll go ahead and close that public comment period, and I will now turn to my colleagues for any final thoughts as we finish up our day together. Oh, I'm sorry. Nope. I have one more opportunity for public comment. I almost skipped right over that. That will take us to our last opportunity for public comment. My apologies about that. I put X through the wrong spot on my paper. So this is the opportunity for public comment for any other items that we haven't covered tonight or that we didn't have a public comment period scheduled for. So we'll go ahead and open up the last opportunity for public comment. Again, you can call 456-3000 or 311. Hit the number 1 and then number 5. So, Daniel, do we have anyone in the queue for our last opportunity for public comment?
Yes, here comes the first caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Can you please lower the volume on your device? Thank you, caller. You have 3 minutes with the City Commission. Can you please lower the volume? We're getting some feedback. Perfect. Thank you. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Hi, good evening. My name is Adrienne Zaya, and I am the policy analyst for the YWCA West Central Michigan, located here in Grand Rapids. For some of you, my voice may sound a bit familiar, and that is because over the last 2 weeks, myself and other members of our organization have reached out and spoken to several commissioners, as well as Mayor Bliss, Chief Payne, and City Manager Washington regarding the Grand Rapids Police Department's strategic plan and what public safety means for the city and to you all. Our meetings with those of you who have participated were insightful, and we appreciate the opportunity to speak with each of you. As an organization in the city of Grand Rapids, one that serves many members of this community and strives to advocate for those who are marginalized, we look forward to continuing conversations with our city leaders about what public safety can look like for this community. Thank you for your time. Good night.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hello, my name is Sri Pazinski. I am a resident of Grand Rapids, born and raised. I'm calling in regards to the recreational marijuana items today. I believe that I'm awkward on the phone, but I believe that youth centers should be added to the sensitive land use list, and that we should, and I'm in support of the elimination of the waiver process. And I believe that's all.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hello, Commission. Can you hear me? This is Landon Bartley. I'm a resident of Grand Rapids First Ward. I'm sorry to call in now. I was trying to get in earlier and unable to. Thank you for your work and consideration. I'm calling about the cannabis public hearing that happened earlier. Just wanted to give my comments that I support micro businesses. I support them with direct review. I also strongly support transferring waivers from medical to adult use. I do want to note as well that, as you know, I worked in planning for 14 years and cannabis for several of those. And as far as youth centers, tonight I was hearing a lot of fear. One caller talked about creating safe spaces for youth. I totally agree. Cannabis facilities are not that place. As another caller mentioned, people under 21 cannot go inside. It's also worth mentioning that cannabis facilities have been found to have very little negative land use impact in general, including no correlation to an increase in violent crime,
no correlation to incidents in youth use of cannabis due to proximity. No one is interested in underage access to cannabis, including people in the industry, including the West Michigan Cannabis Guild. But having a separate separation distance for youth center is unnecessary. At the very least, please define them. So you know, too, youth centers are currently a land use that are considered by the Planning Commission as part of the special land use review process. They consider all sensitive land uses, not just the ones that are explicitly called out as sensitive. So please don't conflate proximity to access or use or with use, because that would be inaccurate. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it, and good luck.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Watchdog Miller back. The Grand Rapids process is planning to move all of its printing operations out of off from Walker along Freeway 96 over to Cleveland Plain Dealer. So every day's so-called newspaper, which is actually a late paper because there are several days late on the news, will even become later with passing through several lake effect zones, even called perhaps Lake St. Clair lake effect snow zone. So what happened was in 1959, the Herald bought the press, changed the name to the press, and in urban renewal, which they supported, they picked up a property for nothing, which you know almost next door to you, 155 Michigan. They sold that property about 8 years ago to MSU. MSU paid the press $12 million. Where did that money go? Plus, he subsidized them in the 169 building on Monroe at Rose Park Center, where they've always opposed the return of Catholic and Black bus routes. So let's look into that and sue them at least for that $12 million, which profit they made and selling the 155 Michigan 400 Monroe property to MSU. In terms of a local matter, the Rapid, which you appoint 1/3 of the board members, is going to pay 2 Rapid bureaucrats from out of town come up with some $120,000 in pay. They resigned for personal reasons. Can't live with that. It was a backdoor hush money payoff to failed ITP bureaucrats, Johnson and Reed. Riders and taxpayers of the 6th City tax zone owe them nothing. It was largely EGR and Kentwood, which rammed it through in the first place. Let's look at the record. All 250,000 U.S. school buses sport way wider and plusher seats. The 165 Rapid City buses here. And the East Grand Rapids 6 marches down Lyon into downtown and out of tax zone Allendale 50 parade to cross Monroe every 8 minutes. None of our Catholic bus routes come back. The primary black routes now will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 14. Your 2 Casey and 3 Madison are actually cut short at 200 South Cherry. Johnson Reed's out of town.
Thank you, caller. That's 3 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Good evening again. This is Maggie Rivera. I'm an East Hills resident here in the city of Grand Rapids. Tonight, I'm just calling back to remind everybody that we are trying to engage the community at large in reference to the pre-planning portion of the city's master plan. So if the commissioners and the mayor and administrators could please support the facilitators that have been granted funds to do this alongside you, it would be wonderful to just get the word out that we have facilitators ready and raring to go to actually have conversations about the pre-planning process of the Master Plan 2020. So I wanted to end the meeting on a positive note, I hope, and encourage everybody just to remind your residents, your constituents, and everybody that facilitators are ready to do that work alongside the City Commission and the Mayor. And we look forward to collaborating on that effort. Please, please, please send the word out about the process, and so we can come back with some great feedback for the RFP process. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Diffen, and I am the Director of Transitional Housing at the YWCA West Central Michigan. I believe a colleague of mine, Adrian, had previously called, so I would just really like to echo what she had mentioned, that over the last few weeks, myself and other members of our organization reached out and spoke to several commissioners, as well as Mayor Bliss, Chief Payne, and the City Manager regarding the Grand Rapids Police Department's strategic plan and what public safety means for the city. I just want to echo Adrian in saying that our meetings with those of you who participated were really beneficial and insightful, and we so appreciate the opportunity to speak with you on that. As an organization, within the city of Grand Rapids who serves members of the community and advocates for those who are marginalized, we just look forward to continuing the conversations and just want to thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Hi. My name is Mark and I'm from Grand Rapids. On this gun buyback program, that's a horrible idea. Gun buyback programs never work, never have worked, never will work. Because the problem is this. Gun buybacks are criminals' best friend. Can't have it. You know, citizens have a right to bear arms, have a right to protect themselves. Police come after the fact. And as far as the police is concerned, no one is talking about the precincts. You have to have the precincts. Period. The precincts work. The precincts help in the neighborhoods. You know, you have one station, one centralized location. Response times take too long. That's the reason why you have precincts. Short time, neighborhood policing, shorter patrols, shorter calls. That's why precincts work. But the gun buybacks, that's a terrible idea. Just take that to the back and shoot it. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Caller, you're on with the City Commission. Please state your name and the city in which you live. You have 3 minutes. Your time starts now.
Once again, Jim Arzola. Thank you, Daniel. The last two women spoke about a strategic plan, which we know we have the Office of Oversight. We also have a Citizen Advisory Board. We have the SAFE Initiative. And that's the strategic plan of Mark Washington. Then there's the police chief's strategic plan, which is all tied together. None of it's working because excessive amounts of crime continue to grow. So the topic of protecting the youth shouldn't be based on Van Andel's genius of brain cells. It should be based on fear and protection. That's what a lot of people are talking about tonight. So maybe you should reassess the strategic plan because it is failing of Chief Payne. And that's because a lot of the youth and people in the community are afraid of the police. The riots that happen nationally have nothing to do with us. The riots and the protests that we should be concerned about, and especially the part of youth, the greater majority of the people that were at the riots or the peaceful protests were youth. And they're doing that out of anger. So when you don't address even the statistics, if you send people out to ask the questions, I didn't. They're saying, hey, we're afraid. If it's not working, you need to reassess and redo. But for those that are in riots and protests, and they want these youth clubs, boys and girls clubs, I think even to take the badges off the boys and girls club and get the police out of there. You know, and that's my comment. You guys need to get it together.
Thank you, caller. Mayor, there are no more callers in the queue.
All right, thanks. All right, so now I will close that last public comment period, and I will turn to my colleagues as we end this night together. And I think I'll start tonight with, let's start with Commissioner Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank everyone for calling in on this evening. I want to thank those who were also active on this this morning with the work that we've, I guess for some time now, have been looking into regarding the. Well, actually, let me start again. I want to bring attention to something that actually was not actually discussed this morning or this evening, and that is in particular the violence that has been at play in our city. And I want to specifically recognize the work of the police department that has taken place in the effort to engage in first and foremost solving the crimes that have been committed. I want to recognize, I think it's an 80% number is the number that has been reported, but also want to publicly state that it has been a rather heartbreaking week, last couple of months with the gun violence that is taking place. And I think it really speaks to, as we've said, I think over the course of the last few months, it speaks to the effects of COVID-19. It speaks to the effects of a lack of real opportunity. It speaks to the effects of a number of organizations and opportunities being closed for young people to engage in. And I think the list goes on and on, but it also, I think, ultimately speaks to what happens when you have a community that lacks hope. And I want to suggest that we continue down the path of doing our part in terms of trying to find solutions to address the community violence. I want to recognize again that it was something that was brought forth some time ago, the idea of the gun buyback, which is something that everyone has an opinion on, but I believe that it has value simply because if it has the potential to get a few guns off the street, and that's a good thing. And I think that we ought to continue to look for every way possible to try to address this issue because there is no silver bullet. And I just think that we all have ideas and we have thoughts about how we can come around this, but ultimately we have to recognize that this is something that is complex and not something or something that perhaps the focus should really be on the area of prevention and recognizing that this is not something that we can arrest our way out of, but this is something that we have to commit to. Again, leaning in and seeing that ultimately when you have a community or individuals in the community with no hope, that's just, there's no easy solution. And so, as I've stated, it's just been a very, very hard week because of the reports. But I still have hope that we can find a way to address this in spite of the times in which we're in. And I think that it would be negligent to not take into consideration the impact that this pandemic or these pandemics are having on our entire community. And again, we're talking about a time in which no one has ever experienced what we're experiencing right now, and I think the mental and emotional strain, and the idea of not being able to get back to normal are all having a significant impact on our city and on every member of our community. And so, again, I want to recognize the leadership of our chief, Chief Payne. I want to again ask that we just continue to do all that we can to help, and that is in whatever way we possibly can, whether it be the small things or, again, engaging in a very significant way to address this issue. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Well said. A tragic week indeed, a complex problem that really requires all of us. So thank you. Let's next go to Commissioner O'Connor.
No comment, Mayor.
All right. How about Commissioner Lanier?
Thanks, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Jones, for those comments. I appreciate the feedback that we received this evening on the public hearings that we had. Thanks to everyone who hung in there with us to share their feedback. And I'm eager to have follow-up conversations regarding the youth centers and to see in which ways we can define youth centers and hopefully add them to the sensitive use category. And I think that's it. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Repart.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank everybody too for calling in tonight. And it was a good day today. And we had discussed a lot of good things. So I want to express my appreciation to the staff who just are constantly working. We pop in here every 2 weeks for these meetings, and they're just ceaselessly working all throughout. I want to give a shout out to all the parents at home trying to help their kids learn during this time virtually. I feel you, and you got this. We could do this. And the teachers in the schools in town are doing such a great job keeping kids and their staff safe, and I'm so grateful for that. I too want to just lament the violence that's happened in our city. It's incredibly lamentable and difficult and tragic. And like Commissioner Jones, I want to thank the Grand Rapids Police Department. When these shootings happen, you know, while the rest of the community is feeling less safe, they're rushing in to try to mitigate it and solve these crimes. And it is a great success story that we are solving these homicides. And so I commend the department for that, for their bravery and for their work. And just like Commissioner Jones said, violence, the root of violence is from decades of disinvestment in communities. And so the thing that COVID-19 has done is expose those roots bare and exaggerated their effects. And so we have this increase in violence. And I am just a firm believer that one of the best ways to mitigate violence is to seek the wisdom of the community for solutions and to lean into those who are day to day living on the streets. And, you know, this morning I received about 50 emails advocating for Cure Violence. You know, I just want to state that I'm fully in support of that program. And while the violence that's happening in our community, the roots of it started long before COVID-19, I do believe that it's exacerbated the problem in a great way, both that and racism across the country. And so I just want to implore our colleagues at the county to join with us, join hands with us to find the funding that we need to implement this program right now, as soon as possible. And so I'll be calling some of my colleagues on the county commission to see if we can come together and figure out exactly a way that we can get a program like Cure Violence. It's community-based, leaning into the wisdom of the community to address these issues as soon as possible. So I'm thankful for the mayor's leadership on that, and I'm thankful for Commissioner Jones's leadership on that as well. And I believe that some great solutions can come out of this trying time. So thanks again to the staff. Thanks to everybody who called in. Have a great night, everyone.
Thanks, Commissioner. All right, let's go with Commissioner Sassi.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll echo my thanks as well. I too share deep concerns of the violence that is happening in this community, and I remain committed to looking for these evidence-based strategies that can make our entire community feel safe. There was a lot of events going on this past weekend. I was able to go to a number of them and experience them safely. And my hope is that that is how everyone in Grand Rapids can experience, what the city has to offer. I was talking to a young person last week and talking to them about their experiences with violence in the city. And, a lot of the things that both Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Repart brought up were what this person shared. A sense of despair, feeling that their life did not matter, feeling like this was the only option for them to be engaged in experiencing violent activity. So I said today in fiscal, I don't believe that the gun buyback is the be all end all. I think we've known that was something that was brought up previously when I was a Safe Task Force member, and back in 2015, we've talked about it at other Safe Task Force nights. And so I appreciate that being brought forth today. I also want to just share some thoughts about reminding everyone about the census. So again, we had a pretty robust presentation today that was listed under a COVID update. And so those of you who are watching, we talked about a variety of things about emergency response, about social zones. We talked about the census. We talked about elections. We had an update on the river restoration. So if you did not have a chance to watch this morning, I suggest that you go back. There was a variety of topics that we reviewed, but the census overall is still a concern, especially with the deadline being reduced to September 30th. So I invite people to join me and others this weekend at Garfield Park Lodge to help get out the message about doing the census and to do it safely. And it's pretty fun. And I got fed like 3 different times, so please come out. City staff will treat you well. And then I just want to remind individuals as well that we are working, the city clerk's office, other commissioners working together, our communication staff to make sure that individuals are going to be able to safely and securely and efficiently cast their ballot, either when it comes to their mailbox from the city clerk or on the day of the election. We talked about a number of things, including drop boxes around the city, which I'm very excited about. And I think it's a great addition. Lastly, just one other point. I just want to say congrats to Commissioner Repart. This is a little invitation for an event for next week from Samaritas. He's getting recognized with an award, the Samaritas Leadership Award, Commissioner. So I just want to say congratulations to you and thank you I know you've done a lot of work in the space around the Gateways for Growth and really making sure that we're a welcoming city. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, for saying that and for your comments about the census and election as well. I add my congratulations to Commissioner Repart, and it's great timing since we kicked off Welcome Week last Friday and then had the proclamation today. So thank you for all your work. Really appreciate it. All right, we'll end with Commissioner Moody.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I echo all of the words that each of my colleagues have said tonight. I have a firsthand opportunity to deal with the violence within the community because I have to work with some of those families. So I hear and see the pain, the emotionalism, and the anger and the frustration. So I echo all my colleagues, and I take full advantage of the fact of saying to each and every one of you, if you get an opportunity and a chance, talk to those families and experience their sentiments as to how they feel about what's going on. You'll see a whole new different connotation. Once again, I think that the police department is preparing to do what it needs to do to protect the city. And at the same time, I think the community is in need of officers to do their jobs. So with that, I also want to give a shout out to my colleague and your colleague, Commissioner Joe Jones, for being appointed to the Oakland University Trustee Board. That's a great honor, and that's his alma mater. So as the old addict George Jefferson would say, he's moving on up to the east side.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I add my congratulations. I think all of us were happy to see that announcement come from the governor's office. Let's turn to our appointed officials. City Clerk?
Yes, thank you for having the opportunity this morning and Committee of the Whole to give an update of what we're doing in light of COVID. Obviously, as I stated this morning, this 2020 election cycle started on March 10th with the first case of COVID, and we've kind of been in that reality ever since. And it's affected how we are doing elections because it's become a very heavily absentee voting process. Just letting everybody know the clerk staff is not quite working around the clock, but we are there. Our staff is working pretty much 7 to 7 every day and on weekends as well. And we will be for the next going on. So we've hired temp workers where we're going to be hiring more temporary employees to help us with all that. I did put in for a grant from the Tech and Civic Life organization. I was working with former Representative Buzz Thomas, a former Bureau Election Director Chris Thomas to get some dollars. It's a no match grant. So I put in for $250,000. So we'll see. We're supposed to hear at the end of the week how that is. Give us reimbursement to do our additional election work. So hopefully we get some positive coming out of that. The drop boxes are scheduled to be installed at the end of the week. We'll have a press release coming out on Monday announcing those where they're going to be. So they're going to be sharp. They're going to look different. They are custom made for us. Well designed a custom thing, and the signage will be in English and Spanish. And there's some other interesting things you can take a picture while you're there, and you can upload different things. So they're kind of a little bit some interactive graphics on them as well. So we'll have those. We'll have that announcement coming out on a full release of that on Monday, and we're going to make sure that they're just so the community knows. We're going to have them all monitored, and they're going to be emptied regularly, daily, and then multiple times as we get closer to the election. And it doesn't have to be for the ballots. If you have other election stuff too, as far as your applications or voter registration forms, you can put those in there too. So a lot of exciting things happening coming up election-wise, and we're working with the Grand. Just so everybody knows, we are working with the Grand Rapids Postmaster. Remember, all things are local. So it's not just, if you hear mail issues around the country, we didn't experience that in March or August elections with the postmaster. We have a good relationship with them. We saw ballots being returned a lot quicker than we were seeing in other parts of the state or the country. So remember, we're hearing a lot of news nationally, but everything's local. All elections are local too. So we'll be continuing working on setting up a meeting with the postmaster this week just to make sure that we're all on the same page once those ballots go out. And so whether you use a drop box, whether you vote by mail, or you're going to come to the precincts, we'll make it a safe experience for you.
Great. Thank you, City Clerk. City Attorney? Oh, all right. I'll go to our city manager.
Yeah, Phil, your sound isn't working.
Yeah, you're on mute, Phil.
Oh. Still can't hear you, Phil. All right, I'll go to the city manager. City manager?
Phil, you can put your comments in the chat. Well, I would say I would be brief, but I don't think I can. But I'll try to be. I just want to acknowledge the comments that were made earlier about the need for violence reduction and accountability. I think it's the duality, the same accountability this community was expecting or is expecting with law enforcement. And excess enforcement or violence is the same accountability that we expect among people who violate the law. Now, I do know that there are many factors that contribute to that, and some of them are socioeconomic, some of them are systemic. But at the end of the day, if we are respecting life, we have to make sure that we hold everyone accountable who is the cause of harm to other people, both systems and individuals. So I'm asking the community to help with this level of accountability, to cooperate, particularly if you are aware of criminal actions and intent. Appreciate those who called earlier this week to give us a heads up about some of the activities that were being planned as we try to mitigate it. But I'm also expecting the officers to do their job that they're sworn to do, to protect, to serve, to respond, and do it in a way that does not pass blame or cast blame on others, and do it to the best of your ability. And I'm going to expect the police chief to increase efforts of enforcement this week. I do know that things have been difficult because of COVID, the lack of activity and the stresses with the pandemic and all of that trauma that has happened. And we're certainly doing everything we can, but we as a city can't do it alone. There are many people who are partnering with us in this work, other providers in the county, and many people have called in tonight. And these are unprecedented times, and we are doing the very best we can to manage it. But what is happening in this community is what is occurring across the country, and the increase in violence and all the things that existed prior to COVID. I think Commissioner Repart was right. Were amplified with the pandemic. But this is a time to act, and so I am looking forward to both the police chief's response, increased response to this in a way that is very responsible, but also his upcoming briefing at our next commission meeting about other matters in terms of how he's managing the department. I want to thank the city staff for all the work that they've done to prepare for this, the good work that happened today, whether it was with the commissioners, your work in supporting the resources for the HOT team, the homeless outreach effort with contract work with Network 180, or the preventative stuff that we're trying to do to prevent crime, whether it's gun buyback or other measures. Thank you for that and the work that many of the staff members did today during the COVID update. Much appreciation. And finally, I also want to say congratulations to Amy Snow Buckner. We appreciate all the work that she's done in helping us with our communications and media and marketing management, and she's done an outstanding job, and I wish her the best in her new endeavor as she seeks an opportunity in the private sector.
Thank you, City Manager. And I will add my well wishes to Miss Amy Snow Buckner. I'll add just a couple final thoughts tonight. I'll thank those who called in tonight and shared their opinions and thoughts and insight with us. I also want to, again, just echo what a tragic week it's been. And really this entire summer, it's just been a really difficult and challenging time for our entire community. And seeing the uptick in violence is really heartbreaking. And as we all know, with complex issues, there aren't any simple, quick answers. It really does take all of us, and we need a multi-pronged approach. So I appreciate the city manager's comments. I do have a lot of faith in the chief's strategic plan. I think moving to a neighborhood policing model is part of the solution. As I said, not the only solution. And then I stand with what Commissioner Repart said. I'm solidly behind implementing Cure Violence. We've talked about that for a long time. I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to identify the funding needed to get that off the ground as quickly as possible. And I'll be having ongoing conversations about that this week. I have a lot of faith in that program. I've talked to other mayors in cities where it's implemented, where they have had a pretty significant positive impact within months. So we're all going to continue to work on this important issue. The other thing I want to just highlight from our day today, and add my thanks to all of the staff who are working around the clock on this issue, is I want to elevate the work being done around the homeless outreach team. I really appreciate all the work that the city has done. Chief. Say thank you to Chief Lehman, who is really leading the charge with that team. And I was happy to see us support some funding to add some substance use and social work expertise to that team. So again, thank you to the staff who do work tirelessly. And I think it shows every time we get together and we get these very detailed updates about the work that they're doing. So with that, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting and look forward to talking to you all, I'm sure, throughout the week. So have a good night, everyone.